About guidelines for the safe opening of passengers public transport vehicles back into the city. As you are aware, His Excellency the President announced that public transport shall start operating on 4th June 2020. The Ministry of Kampala, Capital City, and the Metropolitan Affairs was then tasked to develop guidelines together with Ministry of Works, Ministry of Security, and other agencies on proposals on how safely public transport can resume with standard operating procedures developed with the consultation of Ministry of Health. Subsequently, the ministry, working together with the Ministry of Works, Ministry of Security, local government, and others, developed a detailed plan on how safely public transport can return. We presented this to Cabinet on Monday, 25th May 2020, and this plan were approved by Cabinet. And therefore, I want to now give you the synopsis of what was approved. As you are aware, Kampala's population daytime is about 5 million, and night time about 2 million. This implies that about 3 million come into the city every day to come and work or do all sorts of business within the city. So for us to safely open public transport, number one, we want to request the owners of the public transport and notify them that they must adopt modalities for the protection of public transport workers during the pandemic with adequate personal protective equipment. So if you are a bus owner, you're a taxi owner, and you have a conductor, you have a driver, you must make sure that they have the mask and all the other required personal protective gears for them to come to start work on the day. We also want them to put in place measures that will avoid direct contact between the staff and the passengers. We want them to come with the checking temperature monitor, commonly known as the monitor guns, for monitoring possible symptoms, because public transport is one of those areas that if we do not handle properly will lead to escalation and increase in the number of COVID-19 cases. So we want them to have the temperature monitoring system so that before a passenger enters into the public transport, they are screened, and we are going to have measures of how to transfer anybody found to have symptoms identified in the public transport will be evacuated through the system that we have put in place. Secondly, as His Excellency clearly indicated, that they will have only half capacity operation. Therefore, as they return, they must know that each of their vehicles will not be carrying full capacity. Thirdly, no touts will be allowed in the parks. touts are these people who call customers or call the venue. So no touts will be allowed in the parks and in the stages. The work that was done by touts of calling passengers, we are now going to mark lines where passengers will stand to queue to enter into the taxi. And this will be in compliance with the 2 meters that Ministry of Health has given us as an SOP. We shall also continue to mark within the stage, to mark where the taxis are supposed to park. Again, as per the standard operating procedures, the taxis are supposed to be 2 meters apart from each other when they park inside the park. So the ED will tell you much more on how they are going to ensure that before they open the parks, that all the areas are clearly marked. Each passenger service vehicle is expected to have hand-washing facilities, and all passengers must wear a mask before they enter the public transport. No passenger should be allowed to enter without a mask, and a vehicle found carrying passengers without mask will lose and risk losing their licenses for operating within the Greater Kampala metropolitan area. We want to request all passenger vehicles, especially the taxis, to get the detailed standard operating procedure guidelines, which will stipulate all those issues that I have articulated and all the measures required for protection of passengers while they operate during the COVID period. They should pick it from KCCA offices. And I now want to address specific PSV, which is passenger vehicle. I start with the taxi. For taxi owners, beginning tomorrow, these are, if you want to operate within the Greater Kampala, from any of the taxi parks within Kampala, beginning tomorrow, 29th May 2020, all taxi operators should report to KCCA, where you will be assigned a park and the stages and the routes where you will be operating. Because we now want to register. When you go tomorrow, beginning tomorrow, to KCCA, you will be able to register your taxi, the registration number plate, then they will issue for you the taxi park and the stage where you will start operating on the 4th. So please, we do not want stampede on the 4th. We want you from tomorrow to go to KCCA and obtain the stage, register for the stage and the park that you will be operating. Number 2, when you go tomorrow to KCCA, you will also be given the route, because we have mapped out routes. You, from the stage, park and stage, we will give you a route. And after you have been given a route, then you will report to the Ministry of Works, where Ministry of Works will give you what we are calling a temporary route chart, where you will operate with it only up to 31st December 2020. So we have a 6-month grace period for you to get a temporary route chart, because there are fees that you are required to pay, and many taxi people were telling us, we don't have money to pay now, we have been in a crisis, so we are giving you a temporary operating route chart for 6 months. And that temporary route chart will be also coinciding with the 6-month grace period for you to pay all the government fees within the 6 months. But there are certain mandatory fees that you must pay. And these mandatory fees are PSV, passenger service vehicle license. That is what licenses you to go on the road. Then the second one is third-party insurance. Third-party insurance is what protects the passenger. When you get an accident, it is that third-party insurance that can help a passenger to make a claim. And then a driving permit. So it is only those 3 fees that are mandatory now. But the rest of the fees, like park user fees and other fees which are contained in my statement, you can pay within the 6 months up to December. We will give you a grace period to make money and pay the rest of the fees within the 6 months. But these ones are mandatory. After the expiration of the 6 months grace period, we shall now issue and enforce a permanent route chart. A permanent route chart will give you the park and the stage where you will start your journey and the route through which you will move up to the point where you end the journey. So if you have money within these 6 months, we encourage you to pay as soon as possible. But after the 6 months has elapsed, we shall now issue in between June to December 31st, we will be issuing. Those who have paid, we will give you a permanent route chart. But the permanent route chart enforcement begins January 2021. So I hope this 6 months is enough period for all the taxi owners and taxi operators to be able to get money to pay all the necessary fees to get a permanent route chart. You will also be given a route color and a route number, because to operate now in the Greater Kampala Metropolitan, your taxi will not look like the taxi operating at a national level. We are giving you a new color for you to paint a taxi which is operating in the Greater Kampala Metropolitan areas. Those colors are black, yellow, red, green. When you go to KCCA, you will be given that design of coloring your taxi for those who want to only operate in the Greater Kampala. And we will also give you a route number. So within the 6 months up to December 31st, we expect that you would have painted your vehicle, if you have registered to operate within Kampala and the metropolitan area, you would have indicated the route number onto the side, both sides, front and back of your vehicle. It is important because with COVID-19, tracking and tracing is very important. So we want you who is boarding a public transport. When you board a public transport, you will be able to know the route number. If the number is the taxi number 4, then when somebody tests positive in that number 4, all the data will be in our system. So we will be able to track and trace and know immediately that that particular vehicle number 4 plies the route maybe from Old Taxi Park to Luzira, as an example. And we will know the day that that taxi has moved through that route. We will know all the stops that are accredited to that taxi, and tracking and tracing for COVID-19 will be very easy. All these measures are to protect the population because COVID-19 is here to stay until we get a vaccine. So anything we do should facilitate efficient tracking and tracing of the people. Now, there are many groups in town, many associations of taxi. We have realized that the management, the KCCA Act, gives the power to KCCA to manage the public transport. Therefore, allocation of the stages, of the parks, which we used to do together with the leadership of the taxi, we shall now assign KCCA official to manage the parks and the stages at this time, because first, there are so many splitter groups that have not yet united in the management of the taxi parks. So we shall assign KCCA staff to be the one to manage this guideline, to designate, to mark, and to facilitate in consultation with those who are operating in that particular park. So for now, we shall continue to work with the rest of the operators, but KCCA will directly manage the exercise. So in the context of other things that will be mandatory, that we require the taxis to do within the remaining 6 months grace period, we expect the taxi to take their vehicles for mandatory inspection by SGS. Ministry of Works and Transport is mandated to ensure that any public transport is roadworthy. So they initiated a mandatory test which is managed by a company called SGS. And all public service vehicles are supposed to be mandatorily tested before they come and start operation. However, I've already indicated that because we sympathize that you have been hard hit, we leave you 6 months to ensure that you take your vehicles for mandatory inspection. Beginning 1st January 2021, we shall start enforcing. If you don't have a certificate from Ministry of Works indicating that you have tested your vehicle, then you will be out of the road. Then we also have our own fees for KCCA, which is park user fees. They agreed with it through a broad consultation. We also expect them to pay within this 6 months grace period. We also expect that the exercise of issuing the routes and painting and all that will take the 6 months. On the buses, we are requesting the buses that KCCA does not have mandate over allocation of stages to the buses. We only help in the management of the bus terminal. So beginning tomorrow, again, all buses should report to Ministry of Works and Transport. Beginning tomorrow, in the case of buses, they should report to Ministry of Works and Transport. And for the case of the buses, it is mandatory for them to have the mandatory inspection of SGS before they get onto the road. Because for them, they ply long route, they carry more passengers. We don't want to endanger. They will also have to have the PSV licenses for the buses. We do not have grace period for the buses. The buses will operate after they have abided by all the SOPs. On borders, We know that the boda play a very critical role in transporting a good number of passengers in the city, but they need to be regulated to enhance the safety of the public. Government is in the process of finalizing the extent of what we are going to design as a boda free zone within the central business district. The boda free zone will be areas where bodas will not be permitted. It is not the whole of Kampala city. And I want to repeat this because people have been misrepresenting. It is not the whole of Kampala city. It is also not the whole of Kampala Central. It is only part of the area within Kampala Central where we are going to introduce buses. So we are consulting with the bodas. We are working with them to let them understand, and we are also working on gazetting the stages, because under the law we are first supposed to gazette the stages and gazette the free zone before we start the implementation. So their future operations for carrying passengers and how to regulate them, subjecting them to additional standard operating procedures, will be announced later. At the moment, boda will only continue to carry luggage and keep the curfew time as per the presidential directive. I want to conclude by saying this city is full of very brilliant people. We already have several developers who are developing very many digitalized transport, public transport management applications, including for booking of taxis and so on, where you don't need even to reach the taxi park. So these applications that we are reviewing from various people in the public there, in due course, will help us in the management of the city and the public transport sector. I want to thank you.